Good morning, everyone. So it is a brisk 23 degrees outside, and I have the space heater going in the boat, and it is now up to 38 degrees inside. So warm. So while it's way too cold to do any fiberglassing, we're going to be continuing with our future projects, which are pull the engine out, because there's no fiberglassing involved in unbolting an engine.
We've got big plans for the small boat. We're learning as we go. So come along, we'll teach you stuff as we go building Windpuff.
Now, there are some logistical problems in the fact that this motor weighs over 400 pounds. So when we go to remove it from the engine, from the boat itself, we're going to need to devise some structures using our mast and rigging. Now, a really important thing. I set the bilge pump in the boat with the lithium iron phosphate battery from WattCycle. That was going to pump out water during the warmer times of winter, but when it gets too cold, there is a known fact that all lithium iron phosphate batteries have, which is they have to turn off. If they operate at way too cold of a temperature, which is normally below freezing, if they operate below freezing, they can then damage the cells. So best case scenario is your cells expand and then are damaged and can no longer work. Worst case scenario is you get a fire, and then it'll warm things up, but your battery's going to burn and probably everything else. So to make the batteries safe, you need a battery management system that works. And one of the key things it needs to do is shut the battery down if it gets too cold. And the batteries from WattCycle definitely do that. I tested them before and it worked, and I'm now looking at the effects of this. So the battery is currently very cold and it is off. And as a result of being off, the bilge has since filled with water and then frozen. So thankfully we put that hole in the bottom of the boat, a giant 1.5-inch hole. So that's now going to let any water that fills into the bilge drain out, if it comes above that point. The water never even made it to that point, so we have a nice giant block of ice in our bilge. It's almost like additional ballast, if only it were made out of lead or something useful. Naturally, as the temperatures go warming, that ice is going to melt, and when the ice melts, so will the battery turn back on, and then it can go pumping that out, and then by spring, hopefully the bilge will be dry again. But in the meantime, it's so important to always have just a dumb backup. Something that takes no technology, no sophistication, nothing at all. Like literally, water flows downhill and it goes out holes. So put a hole in your boat at the bottom. That way water can flow out. So that way, no matter what happens, you won't sink on land. Always have a very simple backup plan. So one other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about are the thru-hulls that I sealed up. I did an absolutely awful, disgusting looking job. That is by far not the right way to do it, but it was good enough to float. I think it would. While we were sailing and traveling around, I've seen really good work done at professional yards, and I've also seen some terrible work done at professional yards. And honestly, this was on par with the terrible work at professional yards. That said, I've seen them do this kind of garbage work, and then those boats float away and don't have problems. So while this is absolutely not the right way to do it, it would have been good enough to launch the boat and float. Later, we will be doing it the right way. But if you're in a pinch and you don't have time to do something the right way, getting it done good enough is usually good enough. Well, that bolt was just so horribly corroded that in removing it, it rounded. So that looks like one that we're going to have to cut off, because there's no other way there. So while I'm disassembling the boat, I'm taking special note of how things are laid out and how would I improve on it when I rebuild it and make the boat new again. So this is one of those. Check out the packing gland on this boat. How is anyone supposed to get to that? Picture this. The motor's really hot because you're motoring, and and you notice that your bilge is, starting to fill with water, and it's becoming more than the bilge pump can keep up with, and it's an issue. And you notice your packing gland is dripping. How are you going to crawl over a hot engine to reach down there to get the packing gland tightened? Like just how is that supposed to happen? So anyway, we're not going to have a gas engine in the boat in the future. It's going to be electric motor, but I still need access to that packing gland, and I need much better access. So one of the things that I'm planning on doing is turning this icebox area, lovely thing there, I'm going to convert that icebox into a quarter berth, and it's going to run all the way down the side next to the motor. And most importantly, I can have a little access door in that quarter berth to the packing gland so that you can get right to it from a very relaxed, comfortable position. I mean, you'll literally be laying in a bed and you have the packing gland right there next to you, nowhere near the bed. I don't want it dripping on the bed. That would make a big mess. But it's just, those are choices that were made. Now, boats are just a series of compromises that manage to float. So I know that when I'm building the boat, I am going to intentionally put stuff in a way that's going to make my life miserable in the future, because that was the best way I could possibly put it in at that time. I mean, in this situation, there are no quarter berths. The boat ends here. So there wasn't really any way to get back there behind the motor anyway. So their hands were tied. It's the motor's got to go here and the packing gland has to go there, and that's how it has to be. But man, that's a thing. That is one thing I'm going to be improving. The rest, we'll see how it goes. So many boats put the cooler, the refrigerator, right next to the companionway because it's an easy spot to put it. And also for use-wise, you're out in the cockpit, you want a nice beer because you're not sailing, and you can just reach in and grab one. And on the Alberg, they have this really cool thing where from the cockpit, you just lift the trap door and there's your beer. That's cool. But at the same time, you have the sun beating down on the refrigerator. That means everything's going to have to work harder to stay cool because it's constantly being heated. So I plan on moving it much further inboard. So somewhere in this region, I plan on putting the fridge when we build the boat up, because that way it's farther from heat and it'll just stay cooler and then be easier to operate, easier to keep cool, and then use less power. So we cut that off, everything's great, and then I noticed there's another bolt or another nut right under it. So all of that was for naught. We're just going to unbolt the motor mount from the motor and call it a day there, so long as those bolts come off. So we have the motor completely unbolted, but there's still exhaust pipes, fuel lines, water line, all sorts of wires and pipes and hoses and everything running to and from this motor. So since we're not going to be using this motor and it's just a gut job, it's fun. So we're going to cut everything we see off of it. We're pretty much going to isolate the motor from the rest of the boat. So it's going to go chopping away. Now, this is, for all of you guys who are in this area and thinking, isn't it hot right now? Yes, it's 97 degrees. And there's no airflow inside this boat. So it's really hot. But good thing I'm Puerto Rican. So this is like a moderately warm day. So we have the motor completely separated from the boat. It's unbolted, it's unwired, it's unhosed, I'm hoping. As we start pulling on it, anything that wasn't will show itself because it'll stop the motor from moving. And then we'll just go in there and chop that part too. So it'll be fun when we get to that point. So the thought process on this is very simple. As a thought process from anyone contemplating pulling an engine out of their boat using their own mast would be, because they always have simple thought processes. So I'm going to use this 7mm Dyneema, which has a braking strength of 13,000 pounds. We're going to use it to tie up a 400-pound motor. So once that's tied up, then we're just going to hook the halyard to this guy and pull it right out. That's the idea. Now, to aid in this endeavor, we're going to be using the boom with an out haul to help position where the halyard is. That way we can control and not have the sucker swinging everywhere. Because if we're lifting from the halyard, then all this wants to do is swing into the mast. Not going to be great. So we'll use the boom. That'll act with an out haul to pull the halyard out, pretty much keeping it in line with where we want it to be. And then once we have it up and out of the companionway, then we're going to swing it out next to the boat, but not too far because we don't want to tip. And we're going to drop it into the bed of a pickup truck. Easy peasy. I can't see any problems with this plan at all. It's going to be great. All right, so first step, tie everything up. So the boat's old halyard is just shot. It's definitely not going to be able to hold this motor. So if you have an old halyard and you're wondering, how do I know if I need to replace it? The answer is really simple. How old is it? If it's 10 years old, it's probably time to replace it. Second thing, how does it look? If it looks really awful, it's time to replace it. How does it feel? If it's super toasted and like when you move it, it like creaks around in your hand and stuff like that, like it's really, really toasted out. And it's also 10 years old and looks like crap, time to replace it. All of these things mean time to replace it. The halyard should be supple, or it should feel similar to how it was when it was new, and it should look good. And if it's not, then it's a very easy, straightforward answer. A lot of people don't like hearing when I tell them their halyard needs to be replaced, but I mean, the truth of the matter is you either replace it before it breaks, or now you have to run a new halyard after it breaks. And I can tell you, it's so much easier to replace a halyard that's present rather than installing a halyard that doesn't exist in there. So in order to swap out this really awful halyard for this new temporary halyard, which is Wisdom's spare rigging that we carried, on our travels we had a spare spool of Dyneema just in case anything happened to one of our stays and we had to, re-rig the whole boat. So we carried enough Dyneema to do so. Because, I mean, face it, 10 years ago when we started the trip and everything, and when we did the rigging, it was untested. No one knew how long it would last for or if it would even hold up. So I was worried that we'd get to some island in the middle of nowhere and our rigging starts to fail and we don't have an engine, so we can't motor to the next place. Like, we have to be able to sail. So I wanted us to always be able to sail anywhere, no matter what would happen. So that meant that we carried enough Dyneema to replace the whole thing. Look at this thing. This thing that I can just hold in my hand easily, this can replace our entire rig. The reason that steel rigged boats carry just enough to replace their longest stay is because the stuff is so incredibly heavy. You can't do that. And it doesn't coil well. Like, it's got all these issues with it that make it really not conducive to carrying any spare of it at all. But Dyneema, it's just a spool. You throw it in a locker and don't worry about it. It's plastic, it won't rot. It just stays there. Okay, so with that, we have this very chunky splice. Now I'm hoping, big time hoping, that this can pass through the sheave at the top of the masthead. If it doesn't, then this doesn't work. And then we have to pull it out and figure out a plan B. But hopefully, this will work. Well, change of plans. So the 9mm Dyneema does not fit through the sheave. It gets up there and jams. And I tried reducing it, I tried making it smaller. I even took it down to where they're just sewn as a butt joint. Not passing. So this means that we're gonna have to rely on that really, really worn, horrible looking old halyard. Now, I looked up the original braking strength of that halyard is 5,100 pounds. If it's, say, half there, or, a tenth there, we still have 500 pounds or 2,500 pounds, depending, which fraction you want to be working on. The motor weighs about 400. So, we're going to be very careful while we lift it. And if we hear something sound like it's about to go, then we're just gonna have to disassemble the engine and take it out in pieces, because that would weigh less for each part. And that's actually how we got the diesel engine out of Wisdom. That motor weighed 700 and change pounds, and I literally took it apart and brought the engine out piece by piece until we got it down to just the crank and the block, which that sucker was very heavy on its own, but we didn't have the weight of the cylinders or the heads or all that other stuff. So, yep, one step at a time. Sometimes the same step over and over again. All right, it's moving. Okay, so I'll get the saw. If you want to hold there. Okay. I'll get the saw. I'm gonna cut some wood, and we'll move it out of here. It's going. It's lifting. Oh, give me a second, give me a second. 1 second, hold up. Okay. Keep on going. Oh, wait, hold up. All right, I gotta pull it much more forward. If you want to hold there a second. Or actually, if you want to come forward like 3 feet. Okay, that should be good. Oh, we're coming up. I'm gonna try to just lift it up. Yep, it's working. Down this side. Okay. Ready? Yeah.
Fast, too slow.
No, this is good. You can go a little quicker if you wanted. I'm not complaining. All right. Where? Yeah. Go.
Clear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going in the tailgate.
Looks like the end of the engine's gonna hit, but that's my perspective from here. Okay. That's funny. I'm just about out of line.
All right, I think you're good to go.
Good. Here's what I got left.
Oh wow, that is called the bitter end. Greg, thank you. The motor is out, and there is so much space in there. I am so excited because the electric motor is going to be so much smaller than what this gas engine was. And then I plan on putting the batteries above it or further behind it. So either way, we're going to gain a good bit of space right here, which is going to be important because all of these sides I want to turn into quarter berths. So it's just so cool to finally start tearing stuff out and seeing the space it's going to be. And then the second part is, now that the motor's out, we're going to plug up the hole and we can tow this boat up to Baltimore and really start working on it. Because then it'll be 20 minutes from where we live and not an hour and a half from where we live. So that, I'm so tickled that we got that engine out. It was an insane feat. We ended up using the pickup truck as a lift, and we'd tie the ropes to it and then drive it away, and that would lift the engine up out of the boat. It was crazy. I do not recommend it. It is a method that's done to pull engines out using the rigging and all that. But holy crap, like going to a winch, we were just, both of us, our arms were just dying. And we were barely getting the engine out of here. So then he said, hey, why don't you hook it to the truck? I'm thinking, that, sir, that is an excellent idea. So we did that. And it went flawlessly. Like, why didn't I think of using the truck? So I'm so tickled that it's out. It definitely was a two-person job. And we got it loaded into the truck, and we're all set and ready to rack up, close up, and return another day to put this bugger in the water.
Thanks for watching this episode of Sailing Wisdom. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next Rigging Doctor episode. And if you're interested in even more Rigging Doctor awesomeness, consider becoming a patron to see all of our extras. Can't wait to see you next time as you join us out here on the high seas.